GMOs are an interesting topic. Many people have given their feedback on how GMOs are to them, and the results were interesting. To understand it better, imagine if you had a pet from a science lab because its DNA was changed. GMO is an abbreviation for genetically modified organism. It is when you take a GMO particle and put it in a different organism. If someone were to start learning about GMOs, the first question to come to mind is, what is so important about GMOs? Well, the important things to know about GMOs are the definition of GMOs, their health effects on humans, and their effect on food groups and animals. First, one important thing about GMOs is what they are defined as. GMOs are genetically modified organisms that are used to have certain effects on different living organisms. According to the article, What are GMOs? From Purdue University, GMOs consist of genetics, modifications, and organisms. Genetics is the DNA of a certain living thing, such as a plant. Modified is what has been changed in the organism. And an organism is the cells inside any living thing, such as fruits, crops, humans, and animals. They also stated how they work. They declared that GMOs function by taking some DNA from that genetically modified organism and taking it to their lab to run an experiment by inserting it into a different cell or a different living thing. Second, the next important thing about GMOs that you need to know what people think about them. Believe it or not, people debate these kind of things, and it is very interesting to see what people think about GMOs. An interesting fact is that people in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, were protesting, "Hell no GMO." In the words of Dr. Sarah, a plant biologist, stated, "I highly support GMOs because I am convinced that GMOs help with poverty and hunger among smallholder farmers in developing nations." On the contrary, Dr. David Perlmutter, a neurologist, stated, "I don't think that GMOs are worthy of my trust because GMOs have an overdose of a few chemicals that could affect the health of some humans." There are restaurants such as Chipotle and McDonald's that are refusing to commit to producing genetically modified products. Labeling GMOs is one of the main factors that people argue about. According to Columbia Climate School, CSS, in May 2014, Vermont became the first state to pass a law to require the labeling of food that contains genetically modified organisms. Labeling GMOs indicate that a food contains GMOs. Fun fact, the debate on GMOs has been happening for over 30 years. The last important thing you need to know about GMOs is their effect on other organisms. Sometimes scientists use these different subjects and experiment with them. Another interesting fact is that scientists have used the DNA of a jellyfish and used that DNA and put it in a pig to make a glow-in-the-dark pig. According to EFSA, genetic modification of an animal involves altering its genetic material by adding, changing, or removing certain DNA sequences in a way that does not occur naturally. According to the article in Los Angeles Times, the glowing mammals were created when scientists insert a foreign gene into the animals. DNA in active transgenesis, the scientists removed embryos from pregnant females and injected each one with a jellyfish gene that creates a glow-in-the-dark protein. Then the embryos were put back in the mother. In conclusion, GMOs are genetically modified organisms designed to have certain effects on crops. GMOs play a big role in genetics of crops. Genetics is the DNA of a certain living thing. Modifying is a change of a gene. An organism is a cell of a living thing. However, only some people are okay with the fact that GMOs are not labeled often. There is this fact that a law was passed in May of 2014 in Vermont. Every food that contained genetic modification required labeling, and there's also a process of gene modification. There were different ways of modifying an organism genetically. One example is microinjection, which involves injecting DNA into the nucleus of cells. GMOs are an interesting topic that is fascinating to look at, Many scientists have decided to study the effect of GMOs on organisms. Scientists are even finding out ways that crops could help with hunger worldwide. Will world hunger be solved?